Okay. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the City of Virginia City Council Chambers. This is a regularly scheduled Committee of the Whole meeting. I will call this meeting to order. Today's date is Tuesday, August 3rd, 2021. This is a Committee of the Whole. We have a pretty significant agenda again this morning, and so please bear with us. For those of you who are in the audience, going to make a presentation, and the entire council is present along with staff, and I'll turn this scheduled meeting over to our city administrator agenda, Chris, to Britzy Bennis. Britt.
Thank you. The first item on the agenda is Arrowhead Area Agency on Aging, ARDC, presenting the Aging Impact Award.
Okay.
Nobody here.
Is Georgia Lane here?
Nope.
Well, let's move on to the next item then.
Next item is Eric Simonson from the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities. He won't be here till 11 o'clock. So we'll go down to the next item, which is Pat Wirtz from Kraus Anderson. Jumped right up, Pat. Construction update for the Iron Trail Motors Event Center.
Good morning. You want to turn the light on to green. Pat, words from Kraus Anderson. Welcome.
Yeah, welcome. I've been here in a while. Glass everybody had masks on. You guys probably didn't know I had a double chin with my mask. I always hide that. Anyways, this thing sounds mixed here. All right.
Here we go.
Nope, just figured to give a quick update to go through. So we've kind of, weathered COVID for the most part. We had probably 4 or 5 different outbreaks on the job going through and able to do that without any major delays. And kind of the last couple of months, we've actually ran into more issues with COVID as far as material and everything going through. So material we had ordered and procured in January, February, and March, we were supposed to get, in May, June, July. But now it's since been pushed back, so we've had a lot of different issues. Throughout a lot of those issues, we're still on top right now. We're getting a lot of curveballs thrown at us. For example, fireplace insert, supposed to be here in June. Now it's supposed to be shipping August 6th. That one, so there's a lot of stone work that goes after that. So as long as that shows up when it's supposed to, we'll have the stone done for the week of the 20th. Solar wall panel, for example, is supposed to be in May. That was coming from Canada. That showed up last week, so that's going to start going up. The biggest curveball we got thrown at us was probably last week when the bleachers were supposed to get installed this week, 30 minutes before our pre-install meeting. Bomb got dropped on us that those won't be here until October 1st. And we're like, that can't happen. So after lots of phone calls to go through with the manufacturer, we got a soft delivery date of August 30th for the bleachers. So we've so far dodged that bullet. So that's just ceramic tile. That was supposed to be here in May. That came here basically first week of July, so our tile guys are working 7 days a week to get that done. So lots of issues have been occurring in the last couple months, but through all that, the week of the 20th, there will be some probably unfinished items that week. Cabinet unit heaters, the motors are now, we heard every single excuse too, from COVID to the ship that got stuck in the canal 12 weeks ago, to now the last one I heard was those wildfires. Close the ports. Now apparently that's caused shipping delays for the motors for the cabinet unit heaters are sitting in a ship somewhere floating around. So we've heard pretty much every excuse you can think of. So the main unit heater, which so the building get commissioned, that will be here this week, but the other ones we don't know a date on that. The stair, the perforated parts on that for the main stairs, those are supposed to be here in June. Now they're supposed to be here next week. And these small parts, like the raw material hasn't been an issue, but these small finished parts have caused a lot of hiccups. So as long as we get these parts, we can finish things, but we will, like I said, we've talked to Bill Cole and the city, and everybody's been great to work with and accommodating through these, I should say, trying times of the recent issues. And so he's able to work with us of getting the building turned over in time for the week of the 20th for the grand opening. So as long as all the parts show up. So it's kind of, in a nutshell, some of the issues we've been having, but we figured we'd give everybody kind of a brief update that there will be some unfinished items come the week of the 20th. But overall, things have gone well. I mean, you have to think about it. In all reality, started footings 11 months ago. So a lot happened in 11 months. Questions?
Yeah, we just want to comment, Pat. The issues that we're experiencing are issues that other construction projects have been throughout the United States, and it's a supply chain issue. And so, we just do what we can. Kraus Anderson has done the yeoman's work as a CMR, and we're on track to have everything done provided, the supply chain moves up. So I know that you've made every conceivable effort, along with our Park and Rec Director, to try to acquire these parts as quickly as you can. And so, we'll make the accommodations, adjustments as we need to, and hopefully, the supply will get here at least in time to do some of the work.
Oh, yeah. Except as part of the supply chain too, it seems like the last few months have been the real big hiccup. And that's where it's across the board, not just this project, like Mayor said, it's everywhere. So we're just fortunate that we got our orders in ahead of a lot of people, because it's a battle, but.
Very good. Thank you, Pat. Questions? Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you. And I do appreciate the update. I know being on the design team, we are running into that issue too. And I think that it's great to let the public know that there are some areas of the facility that may or may not be finished by our opening. And that is all due to COVID. It has nothing to do with how things were scheduled. Everything is just kind of backlogged right now. And I think everybody realizes that we're doing the best we can with the time frame. So thank you for the update.
When I started this job, I had 40 gray hairs, now I got 57 because of COVID, yeah.
I'm on your frequency there, Pat.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Wirtz?
I do, Mayor.
Oh, yes, Councilor Bearable.
Pat, any items that are of big concern, anything for the hockey rinks other than the bleachers and stuff, anything else, other stuff will be ready to go?
Well, the main scoreboard, getting that back, that won't actually be installed. That'll be installed the week of October 1st, the big center hung scoreboard. Everything else will be done. When we got final approval to get that ordered and stuff.
It'll be installed before hockey season actually
yes.
starts then?
Yep.
Okay.
They would be installing it during the grand opening, which that we weren't gonna allow that. So it's gonna be installed after I think it's gonna start on the 20th of September for install. And it takes approximately 10 days to get that connected and go through before
Okay.
ice goes on there. So that won't affect anything. Barring it shows up when it's supposed to, I guess, yeah.
Okay,
But,
thank you.
yep.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Bearable. Anybody else? Great.
All right.
Thank you, Pat.
Well, thanks, everybody. Thanks again.
I appreciate it very much.
Yep.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is approve a resolution for a matching grant for allocation of funds for an outdoor fitness court.
And could you give us a little update on that, Brian, and how that's going to work?
Yes, I had presented to the council back here months ago that we were applying for a grant for the outdoor fitness court. We were selected to receive the grant for the outdoor fitness court. So now what I'm doing is looking for some other partners to partner with us for the gap funding that we need for this outdoor fitness park. And today would like the council to pass a resolution to accept the grant.
And the grant amount is?
$30,000.
And the fitness, outdoor fitness court is location is where?
We'll be constructing it over by Rotary Park, adjacent to the basketball court that's there.
Excellent. Thank you for the update, Brian. So looking for council action or maybe discussion. Councilor Freely.
So that would be to the west of that court then?
To the, kind of in that open area between the basketball court, the statue, and the hometown focus, there's that big green space there.
Okay, and the gap funding is approximately how much? Do we know?
Approximately $100,000, so working with potential funding sources of Rotary and some other private businesses that it also fits their business model. And they are able to do we're able to put their logos on the outside of that.
And you're
So-
confident that we can come up? with-
Absolutely.
Okay, all right. I would make a motion to move forward with the matching grant for allocation of funds for an outdoor fitness court.
Thank you. Moved by Councilor Freely. Is there support?
I will support for discussion.
Support by Councilor Beyondich for discussion, further discussion. Just one quick clarification. Is this not a matching grant, is it? So if we have to match just the 30,000, right?
The grant's giving us $30,000. The whole project is about $130,000. So we're coming up with with private-public partnerships, the missing 100,000.
Yeah, but part of the grant requirement is that we only have to match up to what the grant is, right?
Right.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Beyondich.
you. And I did print this out because I mark up, I lose my place on the computer. So my first question is, have you approached the Rotary on this project yet?
When I did a presentation at the Rotary previously, I let them know that we were applying for the grant, and
Right.
if received, it would be asked if they would be interested in being one of our funding sources, and they said yes.
Okay. Out of the needed funding, where is this money going to come from if we are not able to secure it?
If we're not able to secure it, then we end up not doing the project and not accepting the grant. Except the resolution today does not tie us to having to do the project.
Okay. That was part of my next question is on here is local fundraising. If it is unsuccessful, do you still intend to proceed with the fitness court program in your selected campaign year? And the answer was yes. So that really concerned me as to if we do not have the funding, you answered yes.
Because we're confident that we'll have that funding.
But if we are not, we can turn that down.
Yes.
Okay.
The grant would not be allocated to us if we couldn't get the matching funds.
And this is a non-binding resolution that you'll be passing today.
Okay, I just want it to be clear to the public that their tax dollars, this is going to be matched by other entities and not the city's money or tax dollars going into to put this, have this move forward. And the answer is yes.
Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. It has been moved into support. Is there any further discussion? Just quickly for me, we'll go to Councilor Paulson first. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Brian, I think it's on page 22 in our packet. It's provide an overview of existing funding measures in place that support parks and recreation and outdoor infrastructure in your city. And the answer, the response that was given included the 1% sales tax. Do we need to be careful about how that was worded, and does that tie in? I mean, do we need to be careful in how that was worded for where the 1% sales tax is actually going to the Iron Trail Motors Event Center? Should we?
That was just showing an example of how the community has supported
Okay.
parks and recreation.
Okay, and has this already been, have you already submitted this document yet to them?
Long time ago.
Okay, so this was the actual application?
Yes.
Okay, all right, I guess I didn't understand that. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I think that there's always concerns about funding sources, and as we glean partnerships from the community, which we have on a number of occasions, and anticipate that we may have this in the future. This is, like I said, it's a non-binding resolution. If we can't get the community partners, the worst-case scenario is we don't get the grant, and the project doesn't get done.
Correct.
But this is what we want to do. This is what we're trying to do in Park and Rec. So if additional city funding is required to some degree, that would be vetted out at the budget meetings that we have moving forward. But I think we're confident that we don't want to allocate city funding for that. We want to make sure that the grant that we have, which is actually city funding through a grant process, that other community partners are involved in this process to get this accomplished and gets it over the top. In answer to Councilor Beyondich's question about, making sure that we try to minimize what our budget allocations are for other projects. At the same time, when we have this opportunity for community partnerships, that we use funding from the community in order to accomplish that goal and objective. So I appreciate that explanation, and I understand the application process. I read through it when it first came out, and you're just citing examples of what we've done as a community before, and part of that application process shows that we have community support, hence the reason why we got selected for the grant. Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you. One other question. When we are putting this facility in, or the workout facility into the new Iron Trail Motors Event Center, this won't impact that for people joining
No.
our event? Okay. All right. And this will come back to the council?
Probably several more times.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Beyondich. It has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Bearable.
Yeah, I'm looking at this resolution and it says we'll accept 25,000 is, which number
Was
is
it
right?
25 then?
It
Yes.
says 25, then it goes on to say that in parentheses, that there'll be a match amount approved by the NFC Grants Committee. Is that the 100,000 then? That's more than a match.
That's the gap funding that we need for this project.
Okay, so what's this in red match amount approved by NFC Committee's grant to promote and
How this
implement?
grant works is they want to see the cities that are doing this have skin in the game essentially also. So whatever the grant is, they want to see the city doing at least that much money in addition to
It can come from
the other
it can come from
other
anywhere.
private fundings.
It can come from anywhere.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Beyondich.
Thank you. Could you clarify that for me? So the $25,000, the city has to put in 25 plus go out for other matching funds. Is the city paying 25,000?
They want to see the city at least commit that amount of money if they cannot cover it with private donations.
And you're hoping that the private
To
donations...
cover the whole 100,000 with the private-public partnerships.
If you reach X amount and the cities were $25,000 short, does that commit the city to that 25,000?
Yes, but we can also do it in several ways. We can use in-kind labor to do that, such as the assembly of the fitness equipment, the pouring of the cement slab, those type things can all, the labor that we put in can all be counted towards in-kind labor.
Before we purchase any equipment, it has to come back to the council, again, one more time. So we have another question at that time to ask Brian, who is paying for this equipment? Is it coming out of any city funds or not? This is just accepting the grant and allowing Brian to go forward to start talking to the Rotary, to other various groups and ask, would you be interested in partnering with us and putting your name on the side of this equipment when we purchase it?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Beyondich, this has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is approve the beverage vending and pouring rights agreement with Sunberg Enterprises LLC.
And Sunberg Enterprises is?
Sawmill Saloon.
The Sawmill Saloon there, thank you. It's for the Iron Trail Event Center. Okay, looking for council action?
I'll move the agreement.
Counselor Johnson moves to approve the agreement for the beverage vending and pouring rights for Sunberg Enterprises LLC. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Counselor Barnzelli. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Thank you.
Sorry, thank you. The next item is a request to review the live stream information from Youth Sports Plus for the Iron Trail Motors Event Center.
As you remember, the other year, youth hockey had requested that we do some live streaming of events. They had recommended that we look into Live Barn, which we had done. The city council did not like the contract with Live Barn, and we put that issue to bed. Again, youth hockey is still asking for us to do a streaming service, especially at the new building, that would meet their needs, as they feel that the current streaming that we did even this past year was not meeting the needs and their expectations. We've also said that we would like to create some new revenue streams for the building and look at revenue stream possibilities to help our youth hockey program. So doing some more research and everything, have come across Youth Sports Plus, which is a Minnesota-based company, and they're here today to let us know a little bit about their business, what they can do. We've also met with Steve from the Cable Commission. We've invited Terry along with this process, and looking at ways that both Youth Sports Plus and our Cable Commission can partner together so that they can both bolster their presentations and what they're providing our community. So I'll turn it over now.
Well, thank you. And before we get started, thank you. The question from Libarn was particularly, the main question was privacy issues, you know, and you know, having children and youth under the age, you know, being videotaped and those kind of things, and any activities that are going on in the surrounding area. That was the big concern for Libarn, not necessarily the service they were providing. So I think
Also, it was the ownership of the videos.
the ownership of, yes, thank you for that clarification. Welcome
Thank you.
to the council.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it. So would you like me to just give you a quick overview with who we are, what we do? Okay. First of all, my name's Pete Wagner. I've been streaming high school hockey since 2006. Started with a thing called My Fox Hockey, and have just evolved through things and have turned my attentions to automation. And at first, you know, I'm an old school guy, and I'm looking at this saying, how can this work? And it's been absolutely a tremendous experience because we've been able to extend our reach. You know, COVID, obviously, I say I have a COVID business because, you know, the demand was so high, people wanted to see their kids, you name the sport. So we tried to keep up with everything. I knew this project was happening, but I wanted to wait a bit until it was time because I know how that can go. We heard with the construction and the supply chain and all the things involved with that. So eventually our model is this. We have cameras really strewn throughout the state of Minnesota. We're real heavy in the West Metro and over on the east side outside of Ramsey County. And then in the Duluth area, we're at Cloquet, Heritage, Hermantown. We're right next door in Eveleth. We're in Roseau, Brainerd, just added East Grand Forks yesterday. Excuse me, I'm going to meet with Pat Geyer today, talk about Greenway. Love the Raiders, sorry, love them all. So I thought I'd meet with him, and then again, we're going to be in Grand Rapids because we're working with their high school as well. So really the way it works is we provide the equipment for you at no charge. We do all the updates, all the scheduling. The arena staff doesn't have to deal with that. We have a support staff on hand that will help people who can't log in. We've really beefed that up because the company has really grown. One thing that's good for this year is we're gonna have an actual phone number with a person so they can walk people through the registration process, which is not that difficult, it's pretty simple. What we do is we share 25% of our revenues back to the city, the venue owner. And typically, we also do the same for the youth associations for their tournaments. Regular season games, it's kind of negligible. You'll get a few buys for that, but everybody wants the tournaments. We know there's a lot. So it's perpetually 25%. And then for the high school games, we do the same thing for the high school. 25. So 50% of our revenues we're sharing, which we know is better than our competition. And we actually took that model to the next level that way. We also provide other services such as apparel services, because our company out of Brainerd is Range Printing. Sean Sundquist is a terrific guy, couldn't be here today with me. But we do those things too as well, which can also serve as other fundraisers through applications and things we have. Finally, the other revenue stream that can be had, and we're at Braemar Arena in Edina, and I haven't seen this, but their city said, how much availability can we have for sponsorships? And I said, 40%. So 40% of our game sponsorships, that's pre-rolls that have the 15-second commercials before your video launches, they can sell that. They can sell the logo bug that shows up on the screen. So they have an actual ad department within their city that's gone after it. And nice stream for them. In addition to what we've paid them $10,000 already this year in cash. So it's been real good for all that. And in terms of the question with who owns the video, typically we do. However, this is very important to us. We've reversed that where you would own the video rights. We would do no highlight packages. It would only be available behind a paywall. So those that are coming in have to buy it and see it. In addition to that, this doesn't run Livebarn or competitor around the clock. It's just like a security camera that turns on. We turn the cameras on and off for games only. So if you're a high school coach who's to say that Hermantown isn't going to watch you guys practicing? They could, and they do. So with this, that can't happen. The coaches at the high school also have the ability to, they have to purchase this, a coaching tool much like Huddle, I'm sure you've heard of that, where this is specific to hockey. It's really good. Almost everybody's jumping on it that we've had running the system from last year. It's terrific. But that's a discussion for next year, in my opinion, because they've already settled in on their stuff. So, but there's that too, so they can turn it on for practice if they want to go through some zone coverage, whatever they're doing. So that's pretty much the overview of what we do. And you know, I've coached hockey since 1987. I love the game, baseball since '83 when I was in 10th grade. So kids in sports are important to me, and that's why I do this. So, and we know the need has increased. I think it's one of those things where if you've never really checked it out as a grandparent or extended family member or friend that's out of the area, now there's more awareness that we can do this and we can check it out. So that's what I'm passionate about. I love doing this, and I'm just honored to have this opportunity to be in front of all of you. So,
Well, thank you. You were in 10th grade in 1983?
yeah.
Wow, you're just a young buck.
Yeah, I feel like I'm 18.
There you go. So I just have a couple questions. I know we're just reviewing this at this point in time. We're not making a decision on anything.
Sure.
Where you're giving us an overview of this project. I know your company. I have friends that, you know, live in communities where you do the live stream and they're very happy with it. But I just have two questions. First of all, as part of the advertising block, when you look at people that advertise to the scroll screens, and say for the example, so we have an exclusive agreement with Iron Trail Motors for the naming rights for the event center. And so if there's advertising on those boards that are in direct competition for, you know, does that have in conflict with the contract? I think, but looking at that to see if that's the case or not, you know, that would be consideration moving forward. Just, you know, as we put this package together. And the second is that, you know, you do Evelyn's live stream, is that correct?
Correct.
So the question is, if later on down the road, and this is probably a question that's premature, but because the high school has agreed to put half their hockey games in Evelyn and the other half in Virginia, the costs associated with live streaming those games in Evelyn should be borne by Evelyn.
Yeah, and
Right?
there are no costs. So that's the beauty.
Okay, very
So,
good. Okay.
so everything in Evelyn runs, everything here runs, there's no cost to you, there's no cost to them, and, you know, so if it's a high school, we would work out who would get those fees or funds from us that way.
Okay.
So it works perfectly.
Okay,
No
thank you.
issues
And
there.
then the question I think that he wants to answer,
As far as the advertisers go,
Yeah.
we would be the ones telling them, this person is an advertiser. So we control who we are selling the ads to. They're not seeking out advertisers for us. So there would be, we know who we can and cannot advertise with.
we'll give them, you'll give you the information, and you're the conduit to provide this service.
It's like a network and an affiliate type thing. And if there's, for a motors company like Trail Motors, we'd be category exclusive, obviously.
Right.
So we have the ability to turn them on and off. If there's nothing here, then we run ours. We'd like to do a share where we have, you know, tradition companies is a big thing with me personally as a sponsor. So typically I put them in spaces, I kind of weave them in and out. But, you know, really in the end, our revenue is driven by pay-per-view.
Okay, very good. So thank you, Brian. I think that was a very important piece that as we move forward with potential investigation to a partnership in the future. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you so much for the overview. I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
One of my questions was, is it streaming live 24/7? And you answered that it's actually turned off and on based on the games. And then the content ownership was something that I had been hung up on with Live Barn, so I appreciate the flexibility on that.
Sure.
A couple questions that I do have. So does this impact, so I've had some feedback from our cable commission and their ability for recording and broadcasting. Will they still be able to go in and do their own recording, or does this integrate with our current output of local access, our local access channel?
Yeah, that's a great question, and we had 2 conversations regarding this. I do this in Bloomington, Minnesota with Bloomington Educational Cable Television, St. Louis Park with Park TV. There's a couple programs. Cable 12, who does Wayzata, I have them. We just go side by side. They do their thing, we do ours. We have such a vast net of where we grab people. I don't really, if you have your thing, that's awesome. If there are people that really like what's happening, that's great. If people learn about us, and it's sometimes competition isn't bad, where you elevate games. I'm a believer in that. But no, I view it more as I don't want to ruffle feathers. If there's something that people are comfortable with, this is an enhancement. But there's also the component, too, where it can work together. So with Bloomington Cable, they're like, here, we'll just give you our feed. And they just plug it right into the cloud where our announcing can occur. And what's cool about that is if the Cable Commission has sponsors here locally that they're running TV commercials for, you won't see them because we're getting the audio feed, but it's like you're still hearing the commercial. So it's extra coverage.
So the 2 companies, the Cable Commission and your company, can work side by side, parallel. And if there's any collaboration in terms of the output, that can be done, and you can maintain a good relationship in that.
Yeah, we've discussed that. I'm meeting with Steve after, because I have some video projects.
Yep.
I want to see his work, and then I'm going to flip him a few things, and we want to start a relationship that way. So
That's excellent. I really appreciate that. And then the follow-up 2 questions that I have, one is in the secondary arena. Are there any plans to have that type in the secondary arena as well? So it would be in the main arena and secondary?
yes, at both, absolutely.
Okay.
Tournaments.
For tournaments. And then, that goes to my second point is I have a child who's in gymnastics, and USA Gymnastics actually has a program similar to what you run. It's a little bit more controlled in terms of the parent or grandparent login or relative login, where they only are allowed access. So like if your child is performing at the gold level, you can only access gold level. Is there that type of access limits within your programming, or is it anyone can subscribe and be able to watch and participate through the live streaming?
Yeah, good question. It's basically, we do 2 different packages. There's a youth package and a high school, but not really levels within the youth.
Okay.
If you don't want to buy a season pass to the arena, which you can, or an all-season pass to all of youth hockey around the state, which you can do, you can buy individual games for your game, or you can buy a tournament pass. So there's multiple passes. It's really easy to follow on the page to get to.
Okay, and then in terms of the figure skating portion, I know there's a meeting coming up tonight. In terms of the figure skating program, will that be specific then to just the ice show, or how do you guys envision that working? And I'm speaking more from privacy point of a parent.
Figure skating, if we streamed anything, would just be the ice show. But we would work with the Cable Commission as far as how we would go about that. Other than that, the cameras would be off during figure skating.
I would suggest this, if I may. I would just defer to the Cable Commission for figure skating show. Really hard, because sometimes they have two ends going. We can do a fixed view where it's the full rink. Not the great. It's better if they have camera operators for that event. I would say that would keep it with them.
Okay. So I think those are the only questions that I had, and I do really appreciate you coming forward, because there was a lot of questions on Live Barn that I especially had. I think a couple of us did, but I feel very comfortable, and I really appreciate you coming forward. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
I think this is one of those things that we as a city need to be able to provide. As you mentioned, we've demonstrated over the last year, there are a lot of families that didn't get to see their youngsters play. And having this ability, I do like that we turn it off and on. I think this is an opportunity, I look at it just differently, for our Cable Commission to come into the 21st century. I've always had this frustration that they're very stuck in the 80s with the VHS stuff that's in the basement that drives me insane. So I see this as an opportunity. You sound like you're already visiting with Steve. I don't know that I've met whoever that is yet, but moving forward. So I think this is great, and I really think that what's a time frame? You have your own cameras and stuff you need to install. I'm guessing, what does that look like? How does that fit into the construction of a brand-new building?
That is a great question, and I just want to add one thing with Steve, and you can confirm this. He's been very interested in bumping it up, and he likes this idea and this concept, and we can help each other, and I think that's a really good point. In terms of, we can get things in quickly. We have material, we have our cameras. It takes us about, we get both your rinks done in a day, easily. We use, unless you have a preferred vendor that would pull cable, we use Holden Electric out of the Duluth area and Brainerd area. If you had someone, we would be invoiced and we would pay it. That's how that would work. But we can, whenever we're ready to go, we'll be ready to go for the opening drop of the first puck, easily. I'd like to get them in sooner than later.
Yep. And then, so my final question is well, I guess I have two. So let's say in a perfect world, we have this big convention and we actually have a speaker in the main arena. Is that something you can support?
Absolutely.
Out, you know, there's one of my goals is to have a TEDx talk in Virginia, which we could, you know, if we had enough people fill the main arena and now people can log in or similar things. So, and my other question is so if I go in and buy a subscription, you can track my online activity through your website, what I'm watching, when I'm watching, that kind of stuff?
I can't actually.
Okay.
We know how many buys we have. So, and that's one thing to point out too, is each month you'll get a statement from us that'll say X amount bought this package, these single games, and we have them listed out by game.
Okay.
You can tell which teams are talking it up and which aren't, obviously. But we can't tell who is logging into what games.
Okay.
And that.
So there's a protection of privacy on
Yeah,
that too?
definitely. And
But
I don't
it
really
is
wanna-
tracked somewhere in the cloud, I'm guessing that.
Yeah,
you can
we
always-
just know numbers and that's about it. So.
Okay, I think I'm very comfortable moving forward with this, just to have it ready to go. I don't know if I guess I would make a motion to direct staff to come forward with an actual contract so we can get this project moving.
I'll support for discussion.
Okay, moved by Counselor Johnson and supported by Counselor Freely to have staff work with Youth Sports Plus for potential package and agreement to bring brought forward to a future meeting for us to consider. And is supported, moved and supported. Further discussion, Counselor Freely.
So these are fixed cameras with whole rink views then?
Correct.
Can you zoom on face-offs, of course, throughout the rink?
Yes, good question. I'll try and paint the picture here. It's a camera with two lenses, let's say. I would assume in the main arena with larger bleachers, higher up, further back you are, it shoots a panoramic view. I mean, this is crazy stuff. So you get a big square end to end. We draw a little boundary around the boards, so if two kids are playing in the corner, it doesn't go, oop, here we are. And then what it does is in the cloud, it takes each camera and through artificial intelligence, it knows exactly it's hockey. It knows there's this amount of players. It finds them, it pans, and it zooms. It's 4K high definition video. Mm-hmm. And I'm not, you can look at it. There's three of these types that I've used. And the group we're using now is out of Sweden. Their name's Spidio. It's unbelievable how good it is. And all of the European pro hockey leagues and soccer leagues are using these cameras. So the zoom and pan, I use camera guys who are doing this. The camera doesn't do that. It's really accurate. It's really good.
Added to that, Pete, so would the system accommodate wiring in local broadcast commentary and play-by-play?
Yeah, so within it, there's a piece called Cloud Studio, where I can pick the game that's going on starting in 20 minutes. I can open it up. I plug in either a USB headset. I can do it on my phone with earbuds. I can do it with a big soundboard and right into my computer or phone, however it is, and I can do it just watching the game as it goes. I don't have to plug into any cameras. I can even now do it from home where there's no latency.
So there's audio play-by-play that's.
Yeah, it's crucial. We found the places where we do play-by-play, there's way more sales. Because people turn off a game for bad announcing before they will for a bad camera. That much I know.
All right, thank you, Pete.
For sure.
Hey, thank you, Counselor Freely. And so, Counselor Johnson.
I pulled up your website while we've been chatting and looking at it, and I'd encourage you all to youthsportsplus.com. I'm watching the playing of the cameras, the automatic cameras. It looks like professional camera work at a major league arena. So I think this is a good step forward.
Thank you.
And just on a note, I also had the opportunity to do research prior to, based on the issues, and looked at your website as well. Very impressive. The 4K, it's completely night and day with respect to cable broadcasting at the local level. So I'm encouraged by that. There is a motion on the floor in support to have you work with staff and bringing forward some type of agreement for us to consider moving forward. So that being said, moved and supported, is there any further discussion? Councillor Paulson.
Thank you. There is a live streaming venue agreement in our packet. Are we being asked to approve that today?
We have not had our lawyer look over it. That's a sample contract, just so you would see about what a contract would look like.
Okay.
With your motion today, we would have Brian start looking at that. So hopefully by next Tuesday, we have the contract in your packet to be approved.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
And if I can add, that sample that you have is what we typically use. I changed the rights, so have fun with that. I don't know. I just changed a few things around, but make it work the way it needs to. But that was written by the city of Plymouth, the city attorney, who also doubles as a St. Louis Park city attorney, and we're in both. So we wanted him to do it instead of hiring someone because it made more sense to have someone that's more familiar with city structure and how it works, so it's fair and works, and then we don't have to get into all these obstacles and things. So hopefully it reads that way. All right.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate that.
Appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
It has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Brett, I see that Georgia Lane here is here.
Yes.
Should we take 7, 8, because they're really quick items under other items of concern before we move forward?
I think we can just go back up to Georgia Lane, if that would be okay.
Pardon?
Let's go up to Mrs. Lane and
Very
get her
good,
up to the
thank you.
podium. Thank you.
We have on the agenda, go ahead, Britt.
Georgia Lane from the Arrowhead Area Agency on Aging, for the presentation of Aging Impact Award.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
morning.
First of all, my apologies for being late. I got lost in this large city of Virginia.
It's huge.
It's massive. It's impressive. I was taken to the post office by my phone, and in the days of the pandemic, I'm not accustomed to traveling. So, again, my apologies. But
No, interestingly
really,
enough, we had another visitor yesterday who said the exact same thing. So I don't know what is going on with Google, but yes, they are sending
well,
everybody
somebody
to
needs
the
to
post
call
office.
Google and say, hey, here's where
Yes.
city council is.
So,
But anyway,
sorry.
a really nice woman helped me find my way. So I'm really happy to be here today. I work with the Arrowhead Area Agency on Aging. I'm a senior planner. We are a division of the Arrowhead Regional Development Commission. And we focus on all things aging. And I was super excited. We launched just a few months ago what we're calling our Regional Aging Impact Award, where we are recognizing businesses, organizations, and cities like yourself who have gone above and beyond to serve older adults. The last 18 months has been crazy for everyone. And it's really amazing how resilient we have been, how we've seen communities come together. Particularly in this part of the state, we are strong, we're hardy, we know how to get through hard times. And so this is just one small example of how the city of Virginia stepped up. A few stats, I guess, to start with. Really fun to actually hear the conversation about hockey. I'm a hockey mom myself. I won't say that I'm from Hermantown, so apologies for that. But really great to hear that. A little known fact, or unknown fact, I guess, is that 2020, it was remarkable for many reasons, but it marked the year where there were more Minnesotans 65 and older than there are children 18 and under. So our city and our state is experiencing an unprecedented demographic shift. In this decade, so from 2020 to 2030, there are going to be more Minnesotans turning 65 and older than there were in the past 4 decades. So I don't know by a show of hands if anyone in here is getting older or knows anyone who's getting older, but this is a thing. It's a big deal. Our cities, our counties, our state, our organizations, everyone has to be aware of aging demographics and what that means. It means a lot for our workforce. It means a lot for people like myself who are kind of that sandwich generation caring for children as well as older parents. So we all need, aging is everybody's business now, whether we want it to be or not. And so we're just trying to provide some information and framework about aging. There is a fabulous library of resources, and I think I'm here to introduce myself as kind of your aging expert, me and the folks that work, I won't say back in my office, but back in my Zoom world in the Arrowhead Agency on Aging, to sort of provide information, resources, tips for what we can all be doing to prepare for, to become more friendly for folks of all ages. So the Age Friendly Community Network is actually a global network. It's overseen by AARP in Minnesota, and we are inviting cities to take on the Age Friendly designation. And there's a lot of information that I can share, but I won't just based on time. But there is a planning process, an implementation process to help cities and communities take on an age-friendly designation. In our region, we're excited that Lake County has taken on the designation as a county. We're also looking potentially Carleton County and potentially the city of Duluth to take on an age-friendly designation. There's currently 5 communities in Minnesota, 3 counties and 7 cities who've taken on the designation to really help support planning efforts. So it's really looking at, age-friendly is looking at 8 domains. So 3 of them include physical spaces, things like outdoor spaces, transportation and housing or physical spaces, and then we think about things like social inclusion, participation. We know that through the pandemic, social isolation hit everyone. It was not new for older adults before the pandemic, but isolation, loneliness, depression, mental health has been a big issue for everyone and has been exacerbated by the pandemic, particularly for older adults. So I could talk a lot more. I'm really passionate about it. But what I'm actually here today to do is to give the city recognition for some work that you guys did throughout the pandemic. I've been in contact with Brian Silber. I don't know if he's here today because I've never met him. Oh, hey, Brian. Nice to meet you face to face. Great. So just huge thumbs up to the Parks and Rec Department. You guys kept your sidewalks shoveled per the request, I think, of an older adult community member. For the sidewalks as well as like all the trails for older adults to be able to get out and be able to walk. So we know that it was so important for people to get out of their houses. Everybody went pretty stir crazy and had a lot of cabin fever. So that, while it seems like a small thing, it's a game changer. It's huge. And so really excited about that. Not only did you keep the trails shoveled, you also added porta potties, which is great, not only for older adults, but people for who have young children and who are working on potty training, so I'm also in that category. So I think what's good for age-friendly is good for everyone. And then also, I believe, installed some benches. Is that correct? And Brian, do you want to say anything else about the efforts or how this came about?
I'll let you finish.
Okay, great. So yeah, just giving a huge thumbs up. Both Hibbing and Chisholm were also nominated for this award. And so recognizing all 3 Parks and Recs departments is really great. Our Aging Impact Award is ongoing. We're going to do it twice a year. This go-around, we had 13 different businesses who were nominated and received, I think we had about 20 nominations, and 13 of them received an Aging Impact Award. So if, we've got, I sent Brian probably more information than he ever wanted to know, and resources, but, if there's a business or organization that wants training, thinking about, really basic stuff, like how do you keep clear signage? How do you keep, do you have accessible doorways? Are there a lot of things around physical spaces, ways that companies and businesses and organizations can be more age-friendly? Staff training, our staff trained to be more attentive and maybe slow down their communication. I'm a very fast talker, but when speaking with older adults, it's important to think about how is their hearing? Is there any memory loss or cognitive impairment? So there's a lot of awareness efforts that we can do. And so this really is just the start of age-friendly efforts. This is stuff that's happening on a statewide level. In 2019, Governor Walz commissioned an age-friendly council, so there's work happening at a statewide level. So if Virginia wants to kind of raise your hand and be a shining star in the state to jump onto age-friendly Minnesota work, I'm happy to share more information about that too. So we're really just getting going as a region and as a state for age-friendly. So keep up the great work. Thanks for shoveling your sidewalks. Thanks for getting folks out during the pandemic. It really does make a difference. And so I have this award, and I'd love to do a quick photo op. We have a large award as well that has the city of Virginia on it, and I don't know when a good time. I don't want to ruin your guys'.
We could do it right now.
I'm happy to do that. I've got my camera right here.
available?
I'm available.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, I'm going to grab the award.
Hey, do you want to use the big check?
Probably the big one would be best for the picture.
Oh, that looking nice. Very nice.
So,
Hey,
who wants to be in the picture?
I'll take the picture. You want it on your phone?
Sure.
Huh?
I can take the picture. I'm good at that. Don't yell at me when I stand up. Nice to meet you.
Well, we recognize the
Brian, you
staff.
should be in-
We're just the elected officials here, so recognize the staff for all doing all the hard work. It's easy for us to make those decisions when we have staff doing all our work, so.
We know that you all fit in the picture because I did this a couple weeks ago.
Who's the liaison for the Park and Rec? Who's the liaison for Park and Rec?
Charlie. Or Carl.
Carl, get up there. Senior member of our city council staff, Councilor Baraboo.
I used to be on,
So Mayor, are you coming down for the picture or everybody's just gonna have a floating head?
I think.
Come on down, but I don't have a floating head.
I used to be on the ERC-DC board.
Come on. And I'll make sure I don't get any floating heads in the back, so. 2, 3. Not to cut all your feet off because it looks really weird. One of those should work.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
The designation for being, have always been and very strong. And that's just one example of all our. I see the elderly back and forth. Ever, so.
Yeah, I know we were paid a lot.
Brian's done numerous work. Thank you so much.
Now, one of the things that I would like to point out, about this award, while they have zeroed in on the Parks and Recreation Department for the work that we did, this is really a City of Virginia award. It's not just the Parks and Rec Department. As you are all well aware, we're doing a lot of trail improvement projects, which also feed in directly to this. The trail improvements, making our trails more accessible for our senior adults and as well as all other ages of the community, will greatly impact the livability of Virginia. So that starts at this level, you guys approving those projects. And it goes all the way down to not only our park staff for shoveling the trails, but also our blight crew that gets in the sidewalk plow throughout the winter and is instrumental in keeping those sidewalks open. So really, this award is due to a complete and total teamwork approach that the City of Virginia has. So pat yourselves on the back in addition to all of your public works and park and rec staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. And what we have here is this is just part of our active living project, right, Britt? we have active living, we have this program moving forward, we're improving our trails, having bicycle paths, the bird scooters, all these things for active living, to reduce the carbon footprint, do all those kind of things. And this is just one part of that active living staff. And I would ask if, with approval from the council, to have staff work on what it entails to become a age-friendly community, and work with Georgia for that as well. So thank you. Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you. And I would also like to extend that Jody, at our library, they have a lot of programs for the aging and people like me that are stuck in that world of computer age and technology, and they are also very helpful helping the elderly in our community maneuver through this. So thank you, Jody.
And thank you. And I know, Britt, you've been working hard on and introduce this active living program that we have, and this is just part of that as well. So thank you very much, Georgia, for coming and giving us, and thank you very much for the award. Thank you, Brian, for the accolades for your staff. And so look forward to it. Thank you very much.
Don't leave yet.
Councilor Baraboo.
Yeah. Just as an aside, I termed out on the ERDC as a representative for St. Louis County at large a number of years ago. I don't know if you were on there, but these are new programs when I termed out.
Relatively new.
Yeah.
Like I said, the Age-Friendly Initiative launched in Minnesota in 2019 when the governor did an executive order.
That was after I termed out, so.
Yeah, and really exciting that the legislature just passed funding to maintain an age-friendly council. I think it was about $3.2 million. The majority of that, we're looking to 2022 to 2023 to come out in mini grants, which will come through ARDC, Area Agency on Aging, to grant out to communities to take on this work. Because it's a 5-year process, so it's not this is a real substantial commitment. It's not just saying, oh, we're going to do one thing. It's a designation. It's a planning and implementation process. And so the legislature acknowledged that took some seed money for communities to take up this work. It requires a convener and then a kind of a broad-based sector coalition to think about what's needed in their community. We know that we're all aging. Having older adults' voices at the table is important. Intergenerational work is super important. And so it is new. It's new to Minnesota. It's not new as a global network and as happening in the United States. So from the Area Agency on Aging, as we operate under ARDC and the Minnesota Board on Aging, we've really kind of taken this on, I'd say, in the last 6 to 12 months in the midst of a pandemic.
And I would be glad, Mayor, to help our city, since I sat on the board, I believe it was 9 years when you term out. You have three-year terms of
Great.
3 years, and I'd be willing to help Brett and the rest, because I sat on that board for that length of time. It was for St. Louis County as an at-large member, so I'd be glad to help the city out on that.
That would be great.
Thank you, Georgia. Thank you,
Thank
Councilor
you.
Baraboo. Okay. Thanks again very much. Next item.
Thank you. Mayor, before we go to the other items of concern, we do have street and alley as a subheading on the agenda, but we have nothing under that meeting. However, we do have Mike Vidmar here about his property, if we could bring that up again.
Okay, what is the issue?
Mike, did you want to present anything? We are going to have a meeting. We just haven't gotten it scheduled because Britt was gone for some training programs, so she had issues to put on the agenda. So we just didn't get together to put it together, and you're going to be invited.
I can come to.
Yeah, okay.
But if you would pass.
Well, while you're here, Mike, please, you've patiently waited. You want to come and address the council, please do so. And we'll schedule a street and alley meeting and try to get this resolved for the last time moving forward. But Mike, thanks for coming. Thanks for your patience, and welcome.
Yeah, my name is Mike Vidmar. My address is 607 South Fifth Street. I'm a resident that's been requesting a solution to a quality of life issue, and I wanted to do it in the most efficient, cost-effective manner. I've been coming since April. I know the mayor said the government moves slowly. I worked for the government too for about 30 years. And,
Unfortunately, right there,
Yeah.
we move slowly.
But I bring a different perspective. I came from small business, so and my title is community representative, not planner. And there is a distinction there. I plan, but then I also do things. So like in the county where I work, I'm a community representative for community development. And so I deal with a lot of projects like this, 10 to 15 a year. And I'd like to get some kind of action going on it. There has been, this is August, and like I said, we started in April. Last Friday, the city did put down a dust solution, 10 feet wide, a light layer of solution down my property. But since April, there seems like there's been a lot of solutions coming up looking for a problem. And some of those problems we've already addressed, like snow plowing, that isn't an issue. Last one I heard was semis. So on the second page of that is a picture of a semi from last week that was backed up to the garage. There are semis that do come, but there is approximately 3 to 4 a year. And there's many different avenues they use.
Councilor Baraboo? I'm sorry, please continue.
Some, they come down the tarred alley between my house, if you look on the picture, and the school warehouse, which is tarred. They also come up 4th Street, which is a tarred street, and turn down the alley towards 3rd Street and back into that warehouse. Or they come down the actual designated alley and turn on, or go up to towards 3rd Street and back in. And there has been times when they have come through in front of my property, turned in and back up. In the last couple of months, there's been Casper construction. I went and talked to this semi driver and asked if he had any problems getting in, and he said, you know, the area there is big. No problem for a semi to maneuver. They come down behind from Ace Hardware by the post office. They go behind, say, Jews and that behind here in that narrow alley. They have no problem maneuvering around that school. And as you can see, he's backed up there. I would just like to see some action. The last month or so, there's been about 6 Casper cones on top of the temporary water line, which cut down the problem I'm having by 99%. I mean, the property in front of me is not necessary for traffic to flow. On that picture that I showed you, you'll see 5th Street, you'll see my house, you'll see the designated alley. There's a different color in that alley than the property in front of me. The alley is dark, mine is white. That's powdery white snow, or white sand that's been pounded, which causes all the problems here. I would just like to get some form of action.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Vidmar. Councilor Johnson, and then back over to Councilor Baraboo.
I feel your frustration. I don't understand why this has been such a challenge. We thought we came up with a solution, and then now the contractor is literally using the alleyway to store their stuff instead of the designated alley. I don't understand this. I truly don't. We just keep having excuses. Well, now we can't because the alley's blocked because the contractor's there. We put some cones up, and I thought we had done that. Maybe you said, is that where the water was coming across? So they're cones. I don't know why, you know, I'm beyond disbelief at why this has been, and it's not it's a year ago, April. It's the year before that in April. It's been 3-4 years that we've been trying to do this. So I feel your frustration. I wish I had better answers other than, I think you're right. We're overthinking this, and it could have been solved a long time ago.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. Councilor Baraboo, and then on to Councilor Freely.
If it's any consolation of the council, and I've talked to Mike about this already, and I apologize, Mike, for not having a meeting sooner, but Britt and I were trying to put together a street and alley with some other items, and I don't have those other items on top of my head with your item. And I had Bill Hennis and Matt Reed down there, and put just barricades there is a danger. So we were looking at, and it'll go to the committee for blacktopping behind your place, because you've got parking and stuff there from the dentist and stuff, and doing that around. So, because these big semis will sometimes have to come in there to get their stuff to that school thing. So there's more involved with this than we thought. And take the further north, there's still blacktop underneath all that gravel. It just needs to be swept and removed. We looked at that also. So that's what's I'm holding it up as chairman of the committee, because I wanted to put it all together and not have more than one meeting on different issues. But I thought you understood that it was going to take some time to do this, because we don't have the budget right now for this year. So that I know of, according to Mr. Hennis, we don't have the budget for it. It's going to be about over $20,000, and I'm waiting for an estimate. Did we get the estimate yet, Brett, from Matt on this?
No, we have not.
Okay, he was going to go through and actually do an estimate for our meeting. That's the other issue I'm waiting on, our city engineer. And when he looked at it, originally it was over $20,000 to do that. Now, if you don't want that done, we want to take and get rid of the potential for an accident too, because somebody comes flying down the other alley that's behind it, straight across, and you run into those barricades. Are we going to be liable or not if we put just barricades there? That's the issue.
Yeah, that is one of the big issues, though, is that direct line. That's where people fly over.
It's basically a direct line, just an offset a little bit.
There has been accidents there, and so when you take an area like, say, Cotton or a lot of other places, they discontinue those types of intersections. Somebody's got to turn if they're going to continue straight on and take a jog. It's called a J elbow, which is safer, actually.
Well, we can't put that one there. There's not enough room to put a J-turn type stuff there.
I'm saying, where the actual alley is, the designated alley, if somebody wanted to continue on, they'd have to take a left.
And I think
That's what that would, if you don't want it blacktopped, then you just have to come to the meeting, because that was our intent when I looked at it with Matt Reed and with Mr. Hennis.
No.
But I hadn't had a meeting with the rest of the,
Tarring
with the rest of the committee to present
Tarring
that.
would solve the dust problem. And that's my main concern, the speed, and that affects other people.
And they brought up the safety problem if we just barricade it, because the dust would still be there if we don't do something more substantial through there.
But like I said, there's about 5 or 6 temporary cones that have solved the problem.
Yeah, but the cones aren't a safety, but if we put big barricades up there, that'll be a problem for safety.
Okay, well,
So we're going to bring this to a meeting. I told you we would contact you when we scheduled the meeting. I just haven't gotten it. And Britt's been gone for vacation and some.
That's why I was here today. I was going to come to the last council meeting and I canceled.
Okay, but Britt had some educational things to go to, and she was gone most of last week, so that's why it hadn't gotten scheduled yet. But we will get it scheduled, I promise you that. Okay?
okay, this is really becoming way beyond the pale. This is a simple solution. We have lights on. Every councilor wants to weigh in on this, and this is a very simple solution. Street and alley meets, makes a decision, makes a recommendation, looks at the budget with Sherry, comes through a temporary solution, and then a permanent solution that gets done. It shouldn't take this long to have that accomplished. So I'm just as frustrated as anybody else that this hasn't been. It's just a simple, very simple solution that's being overthought and overcomplicated in that regard. So that's all I'm going to say about it. I think it has to be resolved as quickly as possible. So we'll move on to the rest of the councilors who have their lights on. First, Councilor Freelieb, then Councilor Paulson, then Councilor Johnson. Councilor Freelieb.
Make one comment is that I don't like coming I don't want to make this personal. I don't want you.
No, you shouldn't have to come here
I
again.
don't want you to cringe every time you see me.
You shouldn't have to come back here, Mr. Vidmar. We should have this resolved for you. And for you to take time out of your day to do that, you've already done so. Right? So, Counselor Freely.
To be totally honest, Mike, as a neighbor of yours, I'm still not sure definitively what the problem is. Is the problem the dust, or is the problem a combination of dust, speed, careless driving of UPS drivers and everybody coming through there? Because, like I say, I've been living there for a lot longer than you, and have used that access way to go straight to my son's house up on 9th Street. And I'm thinking there's a lot of neighbors that just drive normally down the alley without any excessive speed or kicking up any dust.
I saw you come by one day after we had the last meeting, and you drive slowly, but as far as the problem, it was all of the above.
Okay, and like when we've talked initially, I thought the major problem was these kids, which is gonna return. And so like, if we need to fix a problem, it's gonna be to close that off from having them be in and around that area, spinning out and taking off from the parking lot across the street. My concern then would be, are we gonna create bottlenecks in some other facet down my alley or down Starch's alley or in the alley that's now blocked off by the culverts? That's my concern, is that it's gonna protect your property, but potentially create additional traffic that's gonna be zooming past my garage, past Starch's garage, and other outlets. There's plenty of outlets.
There's plenty of avenues and streets there.
And what I guess I'm saying is you're still gonna have kids peeling out and speeding out of there. And instead of going by your place now, it's gonna be more of them coming by my place, more of them going by Rick Starge's place. And it's gonna eliminate you from having that problem. And it seems like keeping that open keeps more access points for distributing that traffic that comes through that area. That's how I look at it. That's my concern. Whether it's a legitimate concern or not, I don't know. But
No, it is not a through, it's not a through street. So like now.
But it always has been.
But next to your property, the city has barricaded it. It's not through.
to
Cement
3rd Street.
barricades on that alley.
Yeah, but there's also a curb along 3rd Street, so it's not an access point to 3rd
But
Street.
it was.
When there was a railroad, but that was a railroad.
It was the alley, and I can remember when they put those cement block it off from being a through. You know, if you look on the map or on a picture there,
I guess what are we trying to do? Stop the traffic from speeding by and being unsafe, or keep the dust down for you? Or that's what I don't know, or both.
well, it's like I've said since April, it's a combination of those. So like now, for some reason, if you see that designated alley on that picture and you see the different color there and the width of it, people drive like you're talking about, normal on it. In front of me, it's like a speedway, and it's a different type of material on top. And I'm not kidding, and you can ask the school workers and other neighbors there, people go through there at 40 to 50 miles an hour. They don't on a designated alley. And they don't on the, coming on the paved alley between my house and the warehouse, or if they come up 4th Street.
I would say some don't, but most do. I think most drivers are pretty responsible and careful. There's gonna be those kids and others that don't.
No, it's not. It's some of our neighbors that come through. And they take that corner.
So if it was paved and it kicked down the dust and we don't have that problem,
Well, there still would be a speed problem, but it would cure the main problem, yeah.
the speed,
Dust, yeah.
the dust.
Dust is what.
So if it was paved, would you keep that open then? Because the dust is down now?
Yeah, I mean, that would be,
So if it was paved and the dust was eliminated, then that would continue to be a thoroughfare. Okay, and I'm perfectly fine with that. I live there, and.
in fact, on the map, I've got.
And like I said, I don't know whether it's a legitimate concern or not, but if you take away that wide access point for people that head out of there during the school year, you're gonna have more access coming towards my garage, past my kid's garage, past Starch's garage. It's going to increase the volume of traffic towards all those other areas as opposed to his. And that could create more danger for other people that are in that neighborhood. So, I'd like to see us pave it, kick down that dust, and allow us to have a thoroughfare there with some kind of traffic control sign that says, slow children at play, or whatever it would be to keep the kids from speeding through that alley after school's out, because that's the main problem.
Yeah, but it's not just the kids. Like I said, it's a lot of people living around. It's just amazing to watch how they travel different on that designated alley and how they travel. Something everybody gets to be an Indiana 500 or Indianapolis 500 in front of my place. I think it's the width. I don't know. Maybe if it was tarred, it would, not only would it solve the dust problem, it would make people drive.
Well, with all due respect, Mr. Vidmar, I went and took a look at that, and I monitored that traffic. Granted, this is something the police department does and those kind of things, but because you addressed this concern, there is no way, with all due respect, that people are driving 40 and 50 miles an hour down that street. It may appear as though they are because of the complexity of the narrowness of the street system and those kind of things. But there's no way they're doing 40 or 50 miles an hour. 20 miles an hour is too fast. So, but 40 and 50 miles an hour, that's not I think that's a little exaggeration, with all due respect. But
Not every car, but I'm saying there has been times.
But in addition to that, when the school goes away, the high school goes away, that problem goes away, right? And so this has been with respect to Councilor Friedlieben, I guess I don't want to belabor it anymore, but this has been in existence for 50 years, and it hasn't been a problem. And you're the one that came to us, and we're trying to find a solution for you. Yes, it's frustrating for you. It's frustrating for us. This is what the street and alley is supposed to do. Come back with a recommendation moving forward with all the data and your concerns at that level, at that meeting, to come to the committee of the whole meeting, the city council meeting. It rehashes stuff that should be resolved at the committee level. So, Councilor Paulson, and then back to Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. And I don't want to rehash anything. There's just a few questions I had. Back in April, when we had agreed to do the barriers, I thought we agreed to do concrete barriers at that time. Did we not?
We did
I
not.
thought that was what we had stated.
Let's have Pam research the motion there, and is there any additional information as she's researching that
Okay.
motion?
All right, so as that can be researched, that was a question, because it's frustrating, I think, for all of us to keep going through this, and why hasn't, I understood at one time there was a problem with the delivery of the chemicals to spread over that because of COVID. I mean, that's always the reason, but I guess that's the reason that I had recently heard. My next question that I had is, I had also asked for the city to have a legal description or a legal cleanup of what that property was, and has that been done?
It's the cities, right? Right now, according to St. Louis County, it's the cities. We own it. John has looked at it. We own it. We
That
don't
I
have
had
to-
asked for that to be
We
legally
don't
done.
have to look at it again. I'm serious. We don't have to look at that again, because it's all been turned over by the railroad to the city of Virginia. I asked John to research it, and we've researched it through St. Louis County, and we own it.
Councilor Paulson, if I may, just for one moment. This is why all the information that we asked for at this level was referred back to the committee to provide all that information, so we had a packet together and answered all those questions for us.
Correct.
And they have not been answered yet. Please continue.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate you understanding what I'm getting at, because I did ask that back at the April meeting. So I'm not sure if that can be provided to the council in a timely fashion, but that was one of the directives. The second thing that I have an issue with is that this isn't even defined. It's defined as an old railroad property. Now it's legally under the city. I still want to see that legal description of how we're defining it, and maybe I should attend a street and alley meeting myself so I can ask these questions, but it's not defined as an alley. It's not defined as anything. Is that correct? It's not. It has no alley name. It has no street name. It's not defined.
That is correct.
Okay. So that leads me to a frustration point. Why is there even access there? And should, if the city owns that, and this is why I wanted that legal description, and I guess I'd have to go drive down each of these, Mike, when you provided, I don't drive down there very often, but the alleys that go through, like, I think by the dentist, there's one alley there that goes maybe to that, to this point right here. Is there other alleys that go all the way through, or is that the only one?
That, the alley is a tarred alley between my house on that picture and,
Is that where the corner of the dentist?
yeah, from the dentist it's tarred to the end of the warehouse. And then 4th Street continues straight, and that's tarred.
Okay,
And then there's the alley that runs all the way to,
okay. Thank you for that. And I apologize, I don't drive down that. I drive down 5th quite frequently, and I actually go to the Memorial Building that way. But my question then would be, as the Street and Alley Committee moves forward, in considering that old railroad property, I think the city should consider allowing the property owners to be able to buy that. Who owns this next little swatch right here? Is that also city?
that's City
To the
Alley.
west of that?
Yeah, on the right.
So like a boulevard type of a situation?
From 5th Street, that's City Alley, that one there, yeah.
So here's the city alley, and just to the east of here are those two swatches of green space, or green patches, what I see cars parked on. Are those residential cars or business parking?
School and also the people that live, the people that live.
So people, the residents are actually using this city space for parking. So in my opinion, what would make sense to me, and I'm just throwing this out there, and I know I should be at a Street and Alley Committee meeting to listen and engage, but in my opinion, if you want to solve the problem, allow the property owners to purchase this whatever little portions individually, and then have their own access points in from the alleyway. Does that make sense to you? And I know you're saying pave it, but to stop all of that and to really do the traffic flow properly through an alley instead of an old abandoned railroad grade, does that make sense to you, that that would be offered to property owners to purchase that land behind their properties to extend out to the alley?
I did purchase some.
Because if the residents are already using the city boulevard area as parking, they're using that as their own property. So they're crossing that back and forth to eliminate that. It's no different when, like St. Louis County and some of the cabin districts, they move roads, and then they give the landowners, or the cabin owners, the homeowners, ability to purchase that land as the road got moved. So I'm just suggesting, and I guess I would suggest for a street and alley, that be looked into. It doesn't have a legal description as an alley, it doesn't have a legal description as a street. Apparently, we own the property, I still haven't seen that legal description because it's never been provided to the council. But if it is the case, and we don't want to deal with paving it, there's no budget for doing all of that, I would suggest that swatch of land be offered to each homeowner coming from the east to the west to the alley side, for them to be able to purchase and have their own access points in. That would completely eliminate any issue with dust or traffic or speeding, and go through the proper alleyway that's not part of the Mesabi Trail, is it? So that would be my recommendation to solve this problem, and I just throw that out there.
Okay, thank you.
And whenever the Street and Alley Committee meets, please let me know, and I'd be happy to share that if you would allow me to at that time.
And thank you, Councilor Paulson. And all this information that we're discussing here is a committee, to bring everything together to answer all these questions that we have. And so in answer to your first question, we have, Pam has brought up the motion about the concrete, and actually that motion failed. Would you please read it, Pam?
Thank you, Mayor. Moved by Councilor Johnson, supported by Councilor Beyondich, to allow staff to install concrete barricades and signage for the closure of the property near 5th Street South. Ayes, Councilor Johnson, Paulson, Beyondich. Nays, Councilor Baranzelli, Baraboo, Friedlieb, and Mayor Cuffey. Motion failed.
Motion failed.
Then, at the next committee meeting, more discussion regarding the barricades, keeping motorized vehicles from using it as it is creating dust and negativity affecting Vidmar's property. The area described has not been designated as a street or alley. Council Baraboo stated that blocking this off would not affect the dental service school district or cause an issue for local residents. It was requested that the Public Works Director, Hennis, work with Matt Reed of SEH for options to properly barricade this area, leaving it open to pedestrians and pedal bikes. Moved by Councilor Johnson, supported by Councilor Beyondich, to block the south end of the city property located on 5th Street South, north of Rogerville Road, after the consultation of the installation of proper barricades with Matt Reed, SEH, and Bill Hennis. Motion carried. Moved by Councilor Paulson, supported by Councilor Johnson, to direct the city attorney to research the title of the property located on 5th Street South, north of Rogerville Road, to determine the city is in proper ownership of the property and to take the necessary steps to perfect the title. Motion carried.
So there you have it. The answer to your question, Councilor Paulson?
Yes, but
Very good.
there was a motion and it was carried to do barricading of some point
No, but the next meeting.
on the
it was-
south end on 5th.
One at a time here, please.
On the south end on 5th. Okay, and that was completed, and those are the cones as illustrated in this picture?
No.
Okay.
No, that's.
It's okay, I'll defer to the committee at the
But you're
time,
right.
but,
It's not, and that's why Mr. Vidmar is here again.
and that's why I brought it
That's why
up.
we're discussing it again, because this, all this stuff is, this is what a committee is for, and that's what Councilor Baraboo's committee, along with, I think Councilor Johnson sits on that committee, to come up with a resolution, because we're piecemealing everything together. And so once we come up with a solution, a recommendation, then we can discuss it. We'll have all those questions should be answered in a packet that we'll be able to take a look at moving forward. So thank you, Councilor Paulson. I think Councilor Johnson has been patiently waiting, then we'll go back to Councilor Freely. Councilor Johnson.
And I appreciate, Pam, that you looked that up, because that was my point. We have given a directive to city staff as a council, put something up, and something's up. And that came from this body as a collective. Now, if there needs to be more work done, that's fine. That can be discussed in committee. I won't support paving private property for private parking anymore. We have too many other issues in this town with confusion as to who owns parking and who takes care of it. We are not eliminating any access to those. We're moving it to its proper access in the alley. So I'm very frustrated that we're here again, because we gave a directive two directives as a council, and we've not seen action other than some temporary orange cones. I would like to see, orange cones, the next step up from an orange cone is a 2x4 orange barrier. That's a little bit more obvious of what we're doing here. But we weren't specific. We already sent it to Matt Reed, and he came up with a list of 5 or 6 options for that, and we chose putting up the temporary barriers in lieu of something more permanent. So it's the frustration that I thought this was solved, and that's why I felt your frustration, and I saw you here the other night, because it depends on when you drive by if there's cones there or not. It depends, because they get moved. Those cones are very easy to move. Putting up some 2x4, those orange 2x4 things that say road closed, they're a little harder to move unless there's a 60-mile-an-hour wind. But those are temporary, immediate fixes that shouldn't have to get on a schedule for next 3 weeks from Tuesday. My frustration level with this is just over the top, and I hope we can get it solved at some point permanently. Thank you.
Thank you. And this is what the Street and Alley Committee is probably going to have to be charged with. All this information we've asked got to be put together in one packet so we can consider we want a solution to this issue. Councilor Freely?
And it is not an officially designated alleyway, that's true, but for 60 years it's been used as such. And there are 2 facing garages that utilize that alleyway as well. But you've done due diligence in researching all this, Mike, and I credit you for that. Is Tim on board with closing that down? Goulon? Tim Goulon? Have you talked to him yet? He's one of the garages that faces that alley and has access into there. His garage faces it. And then Bev, you know Bev, across the street? She owns the old Collie residence. There are 2 garages there that are accessed through that alleyway. And if they're fine with it, I guess I would be too. And my hope would be then when the kids exit their parking during the school year, it would be along the old hockey rink and then out onto 7th Avenue, because there's plenty of room to do it there. But I would suggest, like, if we're gonna do anything and move forward with it, I mean, we've already had a directive, you're right. But I would like to make sure that everybody in the neighborhoods, I know the school people are, I've talked to them, they're like, close it and I'll plow it. I'm good with that. That's very helpful. But those other 2 garages that have access to that alley, I'd like to make sure that they're okay not having a thoroughfare there. They'd always have to come in from one way.
Access, the alley access is not touched. I mean, that's.
Well, I think Councilor Freely and Mr. Vidmar,
We'll talk about it.
whenever we do a street, whenever we do make some adjustments, whenever you do a project, we always notify all the potential affected parties. We haven't even done so in this case. So by having the street and alley taking on this subject, meeting with Mr. Vidmar, maybe have Matt redo all this kind of, put all the information together, talk to all the other neighbors, come up with a comprehensive plan moving forward, which would be a simple plan, but with all affected parties being involved. We just hear from Mr. Vidmar. We don't hear from all the other potentially affected parties, whether it's indirectly or directly affected by that. And when Mr. Colley was alive there, he used that all the time. He lived there for years and decades. He was happy with that kept open. He had the property there. With Councilor Paulson's suggestions and Councilor Johnson's and all of us, this is something that the committee really needs to bring forth back to us and with all the information that we've requested. So I think with Mr. Councilor Bear being the chair of that committee, I think it would behoove us to have one sooner than later, depending upon staff availability, and have Mr. Bear come vet all this stuff out, answer all these questions we've just had, and then come back to us. So finally we can, put this to bed one way or the other, have a solution one way or another. So, Councilor Bearable.
Yeah, this has not been an easy issue. For us to put blacktop down on that's city property anyway, it's not private property. So we can do whatever the heck we want. But I feel like I'm getting thrown under the bus here, and I'm getting tired of being thrown under the bus on this. It's a street and alley problem. We need to solve it from that perspective. Now, you guys have given us some other ideas. At this meeting, we'll schedule a meeting. We can probably do that next week, right, Brett? On this, because I had her items that I needed to get on, and she was gone, so I couldn't get it done, Mike, or the rest of the council. And if somebody else wants to take over this chairmanship of Street and Alley, I'll be more than happy to give them. I spent 2 damn years working on all these big street projects for millions of dollars, and I don't like it because I was asked to go back to be Street and Alley chair. Because I did all that work in the 90s and the 80s to get $50 million worth of work done in the city. And I don't like to be thrown under the bus, because I brought this problem of safety back to me. That's why I went back and looked at it again to possibly blacktop it. Mr. Hennis brought it back to me about safety, so they did not order the barricades, okay, because of the expense without looking at it for safety. Okay? We went down and looked at it again, and I just hadn't been able to get that meeting scheduled. And Mike, I talked to you in between times about doing this.
I apologize. I thought today
No, it wasn't. I told you we would notify you, and we didn't have it done. It's my fault there, I apologize, but I did not get it done. Because Britt was gone, and I had some items that she had that I didn't have on my brain, okay? And we need to get those done also. So we'll schedule one for next week.
I don't want to make this into a personal and empowerment.
No, it's not personal, Mike. For me, it's not personal.
Yeah, I texted you yesterday.
Oh, I didn't know where that text came from because there was no identifying thing on it. I thought it was one of our committee members. I'm sorry.
Okay, Mr.
So I
Vidmar.
apologize. I didn't answer you back. I saw it late last night, so.
Councilor Bearable, I don't think there's any intent on our part in any way, shape, or form to throw you under the bus. You're the street and alley chair. You know, we rely on our chairmanships and whatever to address the issues, that affect their particular committee. That's why you have the committee to vet that. And you've been the chairman for a long time. You've had a lot of experience in that regard. So by scheduling a street and alley committee, we've given you some ideas and information questions that we would have for your street and alley committee, along with Mr. Vidmar, who would be scheduled and notified when a street and alley committee is being met, and sit down and discuss all those issues associated with all the things that were discussed today and come up with some kind of reasonable solution, and information that we've all provided to you today. So I think that's the goal and objective, Councilor Bearable, is to have your committee meet and vet all these things out. So I know that you're waiting to schedule that meeting with the rest of the committee members, which I think is Councilor Johnson, and who else is on that committee? Councilor Barnzelli. So thank you. Okay.
And if you take a look, it would affect the parking of those big trucks also if we close that whole works up, because they have to back in there, and that railroad grade went right past where they're backing their trucks into their warehouse there. So we've got more issues than just closing it.
Sure, and I think that's all part of it, vetting out all those things, notifying all the affected parties, talking with, all those things are something that Street and Alley, along with the engineering department, our staff can work something out to a reasonable solution, come back to us, say, this is what we decided, this is what we recommend, we've taken into account all the questions that you have, invite the councilors to the city, to the committee meeting if they'd like to come, or submit written comments to you. We've already submitted verbal comments to you, so I think that would behoove us to do so. And Mr. Vidmar, once again, Councilor Bearable will schedule a street and alley meeting, we'll notify you of that meeting, and try to, put all these information together, including with your concerns, and come up with a solution.
We'll do better now. We'll notify all those people that are along that old railroad grade, plus our engineer. Okay,
Right.
Mr. Hennis will be probably gone by the time we get this done.
Well, you can bring a team leader, whatever you need to do moving forward, so that we'll have some kind of a recommendation and hopefully be able to vet out any potential reasonable solution to address the issues that you have. And to keep you from having to keep coming back here, Mr. Vidmar, we can vet everything through Street and Alley, and then when it comes time for us to put a package together, you'll obviously be notified of that, what our plans are moving forward, and then it'll come back to us, and that time we'll be invited back, and we'll try to get the resolve for, one way or the other. How we're going to do it, that'll be up based on the recommendations. That makes sense, Mr. Vidmar? Well, I appreciate that very much. Thank you. Before you go, does anybody else have any questions, comments, or concerns for Mr. Vidmar?
We'll get this scheduled for next week. Promise you we'll do that.
Thank you, Councilor Bearable. We'll be notified, Mr. Vidmar. Thank you for your time and your patience in coming forward.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is item number 7, approved community recovery night out in the park on Tuesday, September 14th, 2021, from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. at Alcott Park.
I'll move to approve.
Moved by Councilor Paulson to approve and supported by Councilor Johnson. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 8 is approved sending a letter of support for Jefferson Lines to apply for federal funding.
We did send a letter of support to Jefferson Lines. They do provide bus service from the Village Inn to Duluth and other places as a conduit. They get federal grant funding for that to help or provide rural transportation, and letters of support from those in the rural community are helpful in them getting their grant funding. We did send a letter last year, so.
I would move to approve the sending of a letter.
Moved by Councilor Freely, been supported by Councilor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Bearable.
I think the letter we sent last was to the state. It wasn't to the federal, right? Isn't that what I'm seeing here? I see an organizing letterhead to Nick Zelli of the Jefferson Lines, and it was to the state. It wasn't to the
You are
feds.
correct. Yes, it was to Commissioner Zelli.
Pardon?
Yes, it was to Commissioner Zelli.
Yeah, so we need to send, you're right, it needs to go to the feds.
Yeah, that's what the, I am writing in support of Jefferson's application to the Minnesota Department of Transportation requesting 5311F funding to operate and provide intercity bus service to our community. A lack of intercity service in our community would create a hardship for a number of local citizens, including students, the elderly, person with disabilities, and economically disadvantaged passengers. If you have questions or require additional information, we may be contacted by telephone. This is the letter that is recommended that we consider, and it is for federal funding. So, has it been moved and supported for that?
Yes, and just to clarify, they have to submit their application to the state of Minnesota. That's why that's in the letter.
I did not know that, Pam.
So it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Other item of concern, I have one, if I may. As you all got the email from Britt, which was forwarded by Mr. Makowski regarding our Wikipedia or the 10 worst cities to live in Virginia. I mean, I'm telling you, what kind of Mickey Mouse operation is that? It is a Mickey Mouse operation, I'll say that on TV. And I could say a few other choice words, but this is ludicrous. You know, anybody can write anything on Wikipedia or anybody can send anything over there. A lot of law enforcement agencies don't even submit all their information. We do. We are ethical in our approach to things. We do things. And so to label this, and you look at some of these other cities too, label us based on crime statistics, that's what people concentrate on. But it's not really the crime statistics. It's about the economically disadvantaged area that we live in and the low housing costs and all those kind of things. So when they say it's the worst place one of the worst places to live in Virginia, it's not about crime. It's about all the others. It's the other economic issues about housing and those kind of things. And that's basically what it says in that email. So take a look at that if you get a chance. And I just, I'm looking to maybe find a way in which to write a letter to somebody about either my personal feelings or our feelings as a city. Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you. And I would ask that people talk to our police chief, because I have heard that same thing. The same thing has come to me from my children who say, do we want to come home and visit? I went and talked to her about it, and she explained how they gather the information, how it's written up, and who is putting it out there. So if any citizen has issues or questions on that type of an email, please contact our police chief, and she can explain to you how that information is gathered and put together and put out there, that we are not one of the worst. So I shared that with my children, and they were able to read clearly, and yes, it's sad that it's going around.
And a lot of people focus on the crime aspect of it, but there are other factors that are involved in when they make that consideration. So, thank you. And St. Louis is going to be one of the largest counties in the state of Minnesota, if not the largest county in the state of Minnesota, on an economically disadvantaged, economic base. And aging population, all those things are factors. So I just want you to take a look at that and see what you think. So does anybody else have anything they'd like to add? We have another presentation not until 11 o'clock, which is another 15 minutes from now. I may have to leave early. I have to leave at 11:30 for some training for my job on a Zoom call. So if we're a little later than that, I would ask that Councilor Vice Mayor will take over in conjunction with our city administrator. So does anybody have anything else, other items concerned they want to bring up?
Here, just a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
There's a meeting I see at 5 o'clock. Is that a mandatory meeting, Brett?
Nope,
So,
just a potential quorum, if anybody's interested. We posted it as a potential quorum.
okay.
It's not mandatory. And it's not a special meeting or a
Not a
committee of the whole or
special meeting
anything.
or anything,
No,
okay.
so there's no pay or anything.
Okay, thank you. John, anything that you can provide as an update that's not proprietary to this point about any issues that you're working on?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm working on the hotel development agreements. We'll be bringing those to council coming up on the 17th. We're also Britt and I have been working on a report on, we were directed to look at available lots in town and things that the city owns, so we put some work into that. We're gonna bring that on the 17th. I do have a company that I can't announce yet quite, but it's coming really close that we're gonna be signing a new deal to have an industrial company in town, so I'm really excited about that. And then what staff's focus is gonna be on, especially in August, is to get the Main Street program through deed. Today, the RFPs came out, so as a staff, we need to go through these and apply. And that's another thing that Britt and I and Betsy Olivani from the Small Business Development Center have been working on, so we can address the fire damage, some other projects, and we got some RFPs for things that have been, for demo and some things that we need to do. But those are all coming together pretty good so far. So we'll be reporting coming up soon. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, John. And in the newspaper article today, you see a congratulations for Miss Applewick. I forget her first name, I should know that, but he's now going to be the new director of the Laurentian Chamber of Commerce. And so that, is moving forward. And then, Councilor Baird, would you have something?
It's Teresa. Her
Teresa,
first name.
thank you. Yes, thank you very much, Teresa Applewick. So, exciting. And of course, we have, as you all got the email, we have posted internally for the new Public Works Director. Pardon? I'm sorry, externally for the Public Works Director. And so we'll see what applications bring forth about that. Any other human resources issues that we are looking to at all, Britt or Sherry?
Well, thank you, Mayor and Council. We do have a preliminary proposed 2022 budget. So, Britt, I don't know if we're ready yet to schedule something. So, I'm ready.
Are you ready for what?
A budget meeting.
Have a budget? Oh, to have a budget meeting?
Yeah.
Okay, well, when would you like to schedule it? How about 1 o'clock?
That sounds good. I don't know if we can because of the way we have.
That was just a joke. Not a very good one either, I don't imagine, but, okay, so we're looking forward to scheduling a budget meeting
Next week.
coming forward. Okay, great, thank you. Councilor Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. Britt and I did attend the Coalition of Greater Minnesota City Summer Conference, and I am happy to let us know that the dark store theory came up down there.
What did?
The dark store theory, the theory that large box businesses only have to pay property taxes based
yes.
on being empty. And that was brought up several times, so it is something the coalition and some of the state legislators that were present, I spoke to one that made notes. So it's very frustrating that, especially knowing how well corporate America did over the last year, that when it comes time for them to pay their property taxes next year, they're not going to pay what I would say is their fair share. So hopefully there can be some legislative action moving forward on getting a little bit more than a dark store when it comes to their fair share. So I just thought that's something that I know has come up in this chamber before, but it's being heard at the state level again.
And I think a couple of years ago at our property tax meeting, forget who's the head of our county assessor's office. Pat Orant, thank you. Pat Orant had indicated that some of these big box stores, including one in our community city, was applying for or looking for some kind of court action or some kind of action with respect to the property taxes for an empty building as opposed to a stocked one. So it's nice that this is coming up, Councilor Johnson, for consideration, and because it sure would have a significant impact on the property taxes that they pay. So thank you. And we're waiting for Mr. Eric Simonson from the Coalition of Greater Minnesota City. So let's take 5 minutes or so, grab a snack in the back and a cup of coffee, and get ready for the last item on the agenda.
when my staff answers the email.
Happens to me all the time.
Okay, apparently, Mr. Simonson for the GMC will come at a later time. There's no other items that are listed on the agenda, so before we adjourn, does anybody have anything else they'd like to bring up? Seeing none, we will adjourn our committee of the whole meeting. It's at 11:07.